If you want your mind to be blown and your reality to shift, provided World War III doesn't happen, come with me May 8th through 19th to Egypt with Mohamed Ibrahim and Derek Olson. See you there. Hi, you guys. I'm here with Mohamed Ibrahim. He is, well, he's an Egyptologist / tour guide and author of, he just wrote this book. It's called Egypt Before the Written History, The Knowledge of Ancient Egypt. It's very good, actually. It's very, okay, wait, but how do you say your last name?
El Bastioni.
El Bastioni. Okay, because like I always just called you Mohamed Ibrahim. So like that's your middle name then, and that's your real last name.
I know, exactly. Ibrahim is my father's name.
Okay. All right,
Okay.
cool. Well, congratulations on your new book. Welcome aboard again.
Thank you, Nikki. Yes, it took me a while to write the book. Not because I was writing it in 5 years, but because it was my first experiment, of course, and that is, I think, tough for every author.
Yeah.
But guess what? It took me a long time to read the book. I finished this book 3 years ago, and I was reading my own book, and I was enjoying the book. But the last chapter, I had to edit the last chapter many times because to give you the conclusion in a good way, it was not easy. Because I used to say it as oral story to my groups and my tours. But to put it in written text, that was a little bit strange for me. But we did it.
Yeah, you did. And I mean, okay, so I did one of your tours in 2019. And it was one of those things where I learned so much about just like, oh, that's Newt, and that's what she does, and these are her 4 kids. I mean, I learned so much about the ancient Egyptian mythology that I don't know. I never learned it from any books before this, so it was really, really amazing. And you go into it's interesting because it's like not just you do some traditional Egyptology where you go in and explain basically the hieroglyphs and like what they're seeing, and then how you can actually interpret it differently, or where you're interpreting it. But then you also go into things like precision cuts and drill holes and like ancient technologies that they don't show hieroglyphs of. So as somebody who was, I guess, trained in the traditional Egyptology, how did you then transition into being open-minded enough to start listening to some of these other people who you're touring with? Like you're going with Robert Schoch and like, geologists and engineers and all this other stuff, and you start broadening your mind. So how did that all happen?
Look, it's about passion and being smart. I always say, if you want to know, especially about everything, of course, but about history, because history is very, it's like a deep ocean. If you are not a good diver, you will be happy with only the surface, maybe, or like scuba diving some meters, and that's it. But because I loved this subject from a long time ago, even when I was in high school or maybe earlier, science, history subject was my favorite. And I tell you what, this story I'm going to tell you now is true. One day I went to my school before the school started to get the school books. Okay. And I was going back home, and it was about 1 hour walking to my house. In this 1 hour walking, I finished the history book. I read it all, 300 pages in 1 hour. So from day one, I studied this because I love this. Because unfortunately, many in Egypt, they go to the university or certain faculty according to the degree they got in high school. Some of them, they study things they never dreamed or had any kind of wish to study these things. But it was my dream to become a tour guide. That's why I was doing very well. And as I told you, I can say I am smart. So when I had the chance to work with these people, I started to learn from them very fast. Like when I met Dr. Robert Schoch, and I met before him Christopher Dunn, they gave me their books, okay, signed books. Of course, I still have them. I can tell you that before reading their books, I started to understand what they are talking about. I started to put together a very good idea about their stories. And then by reading their books, I started to see the whole picture. But the thing I see myself maybe the most lucky one, the luckiest, that I started to collect information from different fields, different experts. So it's not only geology, it's not only engineering. I met geophysicists, I met mathematicians, I met astronauts, and everyone of them, either male or female, were sharing their knowledge with me about ancient Egypt and how they see ancient Egypt from their own perspective and from their own studies.
Mm. So, one thing that you really focused on and that I really liked was you were always pointing out like cut marks and drill holes and things that we're not supposed to have. Like we're supposed to have copper tools at this point when these things were built. And a point that you've stated in your book really clearly was that they have hieroglyphs of them making sandals, of them they have all kinds of hieroglyphic pictures of industry that existed, right? But they
Right.
don't ever show you how the pyramids were built or how the giant obelisk or the stones, they don't show you anything where it's like this is how it was cut, polished, and made.
Mm.
So that's a good observation. So how did you so you have come to the conclusion that you think that these were actually made pre-dynastic.
Exactly. The part in my book talks about the pre-dynastic vases and jars is my evidence that there was high civilization existed before what we call it dynastic or pre-dynastic. Okay. And from that point, I can say that any megalithic structure, any sophisticated building built and was attributed to dynastic Egypt, it is not dynastic. Because of one important thing. If you Google this question, who built this? Okay, who built Tower Eiffel? Who built Notre Dame, the church? Who built the Chinese wall? Who built? You will find always a story about either the engineer or the people who joined the work. Credible story. But the interesting thing that no one in ancient Egypt, and there are some names they claim they are the builders of the pyramid, as the Great Pyramid as an example. They say Hem Iono. He was the engineer or the chief of constructions during Khufu time. We found the tomb of Hem Iono, and Hem Iono has a beautiful statue with the pedestal contains so many hieroglyphics, lots of very nice, fancy titles. But guess what? There is no title says, I built the pyramid, or the builder of the pyramid, or the
Right.
engineer of the pyramid. Not only him, but all the other engineers, they claim that they are the builders of the pyramid during Khafra time, Kefren, Dynasty 5, Dynasty 6. None of them had given himself this title. So as if the pyramid as a construction disappeared 100% from the art and the stories of Old Kingdom. Not only on Old Kingdom, of course, it's Old Kingdom, Middle and New Kingdom. But I'm talking about the time of the people, they attribute the pyramid to them, or the most of the pyramids. So yes, I was saying this, even the very easy thing like making sandal, it is shown on the walls of some tombs, but not building the pyramid. Like what? This is insane to accept that these people whom, and there is a tomb, I think you visited one of these tombs in the tour. They showed people doing boats, tables, doing other stuff, but no pyramid. And by the way, no obelisk also. Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, even when you go to Aswan, when you look at how they were the unfinished obelisk or how they're like trying to, that there's weird scrape marks out of the granite, and there's no account for what causes that. I mean, and that's a universal hallmark that's kind of found all over the world. That weird like ice cream scoop kind of looking thing. But you would think that they would take the time to depict what was going on there. Nothing.
Exactly. And we are talking about a civilization left millions of depicted walls. So if we are talking about a nation left few writings, left few pictures, I would say, yes, they can skip that. But they left millions of writings over the walls of temples, tombs, papyrus. Okay, so they were big fans of writings and drawings. So the
Well,
same question, why they didn't depict this?
there was always like the weird, like I remember seeing a lot of different depictions that you would point out about, it would be there. It was almost like they had like a little lasso, like a little rope or a little water line or energy line or something around a building that, and it would be floating or something. So it was almost like, okay, well, maybe they had some weird technology we don't know about and would float buildings. But I mean, even that's such a weird, you could interpret that so many different ways.
Yeah, this is the Komombo scene, what I call it, the gravity control scene, because we cannot deny that dynastic Egypt inherited some of the technology, either inherited or found also. They may found some of these tools, and maybe also they managed to activate some, okay? Because you will find that some of the dynasties, some rulers, they did some great work. It was like a miracle happened in their own time. So I think they activated some powers and they must have some knowledge. So one of these inherited knowledge is the ability to lift. And of course, they must have seen this and thought about this. What if the technology was used to lift these giant statues and giant blocks? So I think they were thinking about this, and maybe they had a kind of good knowledge about it, especially the community of priests. That's why in Komombo Temple there is this scene, which I call it the levitation of the temple. And yes, as they said, they show a kind of energy rope in the shape of a rope around the temple, and the temple is being levitated in three photos. Photo number one, the temple above the ground. Photo number two, the temple slightly going up. And photo number three, the temple is going very high. And the good news that I found this carving was repeated in three other temples. So because when I started to recognize the symbol, I saw it in other three temples. So it's not in just one temple.
Well, and another way is like the healing chain. I really liked what you talked about, like next to the step pyramid. I don't know what you call that healing center area, but
Hospital.
the hospital. I
Yeah.
can't remember. I remember there's an official name for it, but I don't know. Um yeah, like what do you make of these? Like there's, and I think I remember something around like maybe the Isis temple or that one that's kind of close to as to the Abu symbol, like down with all the crocodiles. There was like another weird little chamber where you would stick your head in and you could hear like a vibration. So what's going on with that?
Yeah, you mentioned something good. What is the official name of this place in Saqqara? It's called Hepsed. Hepsed means the festival which happens every 30 years. So if we explain this word, this name in a good way, they are talking about an occasion happened every 30 years. So it seems that this is an important occasion. By the way, not necessarily 30 years, but maybe they are talking about long time.
Mm.
So in my own opinion, the original story, it talks about an alignment, which happens maybe regularly every 30 years or so. And that day is going to be a day of energy, very positive energy. So the temple was built to receive this kind of energy. And the sound we hear when we stick our heads into this hollow or the stone window is the sound of running water underneath. So the water table, but this is also still weird. This is not a way to explain it as easy thing. The water table is supposed to be very deep, more than 200 meters, maybe more than this under the ground. So it is not okay to hear the sound. But they had a kind of design, and we see part of the design above the ground. We don't see what is under the ground. So part of the story depends on the energy comes from the space, and the second part depends on the design they made on the ground, and people will come to visit the place. So when you think of this word festival in any ancient civilization, always think about healing, gathering for healing or for receiving positive energies. So it was not a kind of a regular simple festival. No, it was not. It was for mainly for healing.
Um, I believe that, but like, do you have any, like, why do you think that it was for healing? Exactly.
Because the imagine what we do in festivals. In festivals, it is always a happy time. People eat, drink, music. It's a kind of a place where we share joy and we share happiness. Okay, so I think this is the reproduction. What we call it festival is the reproduction of the gathering, healing gathering, and because people used to leave the original situation, the healing gathering, in good shape. And one main part of this story is music. But it was not music for entertainment. It was music for healing. Like when we call Hathor, we say Hathor is the goddess of music. No, that is not fair because we try to explain that she was like a concert or a band. Okay, no, music here is certain tone, certain music, but for healing. So that's why any story about festival, certain festival, like the marching between Luxor Temple and Karnak Temple, it also, when you look to the carvings on the wall, they show belly dancers or dancers, they show musician, and they show people with lots of different types of food. Okay, that is the case happened, yes, during the dynastic time. But before the dynastic Egypt, pre-Diluvian Egypt, that marching was healing. Okay, but then it was taken this kind of we can call it cover, by the way, cover up by the priest. The priest didn't want the people to feel or understand what is the main source of this energy, of the healing energy. So
Yeah.
they made this kind of festival as a cover up to tell them it is the blessing. After they finish, he will bless them. So this was the game.
Well, I found it also kind of interesting that there's rose quartz basically in every single entrance when you go into every temple, right? Like the entryway will be and there and I mean it's just speculation here, but there's got to be some sort of properties, maybe piezoelectric or something has to happen with like the granite that or the quartz that's inside the like granite and all the other stuff. And it's just kind of a weird coincidence that there happens to be rose quartz that you walk over before you enter any of the temples. And you
Mhm.
think that it's some sort of clearing or energy healing or some sort of thing, right?
Exactly. I always give good examples about this. I say, according to the function, the design is going to be either easy or sophisticated. If the function or the target is easy, like I always say to my uh, in my tours, if you go to from your house to a nearby school, okay, do you go by bicycle or you go by airplane? So they say we go by bicycle. Okay. So that is an easy mission. But if you fly from USA to Egypt, okay, you fly, you take the airplane, you don't take a bicycle to this journey. So the target is what is, if we have an important function or an important mission, the tools will be sophisticated. The tools will be either huge or the design is going to be different. Okay. And according to scientists, Rose, quartz in general is magic. Quartz can amplify sound. Quartz can create electricity. Quartz can store data. Quartz can communicate. Quartz can do so many things. Okay. So why in front of each temple there was a huge obelisk and one on each side, and then huge statues behind the obelisks. And the more you go in, the bigger statues you see. And they are always creating what I can call it a gate. So you cannot enter the temple without getting through these two obelisks or two statues. Okay. So it is very clear that these are the gates, either for scanning, either for absorbing negative energies. And I know this from the statue in front of Luxor Temple for Ramses II. The back side of the seat, which is supposed to be like a normal backside of a seat, but this time the backside of the seat is an obelisk attached to the spine and the backbone of the king. So they are telling us that the obelisk here is dealing with the body as if it is a biomagnetic, eternal biomagnetic touch to the body. Okay. So this is what I'm trying to say. So many of my ideas are not imagination 100%. No, I see so many carvings or designs. Okay, but I read it differently. I read it according to the knowledge I collected from the other scientists I worked with.
Well, and obelisks are such a weird, I mean, I think it's kind of bizarre how many were taken out of Egypt and put like in Washington, D.C. and Paris and London, like in really prominent places too, you know, or even like, I know the Washington Monument isn't actually from Egypt, but it is
There is one
immolating.
in New York,
Oh yeah, there's a big
the
Egyptian one.
Butler's
I
Needle.
mean, weren't there, I mean, I feel like there's a lot that have been stolen
There
from
are
Egypt.
9 obelisks outside Egypt. Okay.
Nice.
And 9, let's say 9 in good condition, or 9 obelisks managed to go safe outside Egypt, but they broke more than 50 to take these 9.
Right. You
Because
said there's some that are in the bottom of the Nile, or they didn't even make it through the boat. Like,
some under the Mediterranean Sea, some were broken completely. But that is good information. You just mentioned that why they wanted to handle all the troubles and all the efforts and money to take these obelisks out of Egypt. If they didn't know that these obelisks are precious, not as history, because they can take other pieces. Now they understood that these obelisks are important, and they put them on their most famous squares.
yeah.
Okay, so they had some knowledge. They understood some secrets about these obelisks. And by the way, that started from the Roman time. So we cannot blame the early British or French. No, that happened from the 2nd century AD and the 3rd and the 4th during the Roman time in Egypt. They understood that these obelisks are so powerful, and maybe it will add to their atmosphere, and it will maybe affect their communities. So they decided to take so many of our obelisks. So there are 9 survivors now outside Egypt, especially the one outside the Vatican.
Right. I was gonna say there's the one in Rome. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, okay. So then like tell us about let's talk a little bit about the stone tools in general, about how our like you can't cut like they're telling us that they would have only had access to basically copper and some gold, but they didn't have steel then, they didn't have diamond drill bits, and yet they're cutting into quartz, which is like a, or granite and andesite, and, some of these really, and the limestone in Egypt is really hard. It's not like some limestone is like on a Mohs scale, it's like a 3 or a 4. The limestone there, I don't know, I need to test it, but it feels like it'd be more like on like a 5 or 6 kind of range. So we're talking about like stone that's really, really tough. So, how do they adjust, or how do they account for that?
Yes. Let me tell you first about limestone. Limestone is better quality in Egypt than other limestone anywhere else because of our dry weather. Okay. Limestone is like a sponge. Dry weather is the perfect weather for limestone. But if there's humid weather, limestone will be weaker than other type. Yes, about tools and the materials they use to make these tools. You know what? Even if we agree that they had, which is not correct, if they had iron tools and steel tools and diamond tools, but manual tools, okay, that is not going to produce the same things we see made from pre-dynastic and middle and old kingdom. Why? Because of a very simple reason, precision. And this is the way to decide this piece was made by manual tools and great experience, or must have been made with advanced tool and high technology. It is the precision. Because even now, if you go to any gallery for a great sculptor or architect or anything, they show you their art. Is this handmade? If they say yes, when you examine and measure the different parts of the thing, is there a body for a statue or vases or things like this? You will always find mistakes, or let's don't call it mistakes. It will not
It
be
won't be 100% even.
exactly. But the famous picture from the book Lost Technologies of Ancient Egypt for Christopher Dunn, the head of the statue was in front of Luxor Temple. The right side is a perfect copy from the left side. The distance from the right ear to the middle of the nose, from the left ear to the middle of the nose is the same. The distance of the eyebrows is the same. The eyes to the other side, the same. The cheeks, okay. The same, the obelisk itself. Also, when we do good analysis to the obelisk, you will find that the obelisk is not going as one angle to the top. It is tapering to the top.
Hmm.
Okay. So it means that we have 4 sides must do the same all the way to the top. Okay. Doing this was high technology, but the human element is going to be part of this story that will not lead to the same result. Okay. But my own theory that yes, there was high technology, there were high tech, the advanced tools, but also there were other machines controlling the story. So there was like artificial intelligence running the operation. So the human element was very limited, only to turn on the machine and turn off the machine. Okay. So based on those vases and jars and other tools were found from the pre-dynastic time, when you look inside the jar, you will see that the hollow space is the same design like the exterior. You know
Yeah.
what? In so many factories and so many galleries I visited in modern days, selling modern vases, very nice quality, very good looking. But when I look inside, I found that they used a tubular drill to make a cut, just cylindrical cut in the middle, and that's it. But it doesn't cut all the doesn't make it hollow, the same shape like the exterior wall. No, from inside is different design from rather than from outside. Okay, so that is very clear evidence that there were high technology in ancient Egypt.
Yeah, like in your book you have, and I remember when you were showing us around in the museum, like you have the schistous disc. Like
Mhm,
that's like a really I'll put a picture of it up here too. But I mean, it's like even if it's kind of weird how that would have been carved. It's so
mhm,
precise on all three sides. I had Ben from Uncharted X on here probably about a year ago, and he was doing some actual he was teaming up with Chris Dunn's son, and they were putting some of the vases or some pre-dynastic vase into, I don't know, it was basically like an MRI scanner or something, basically trying to scientifically see the precision. And it was, from what they were coming up with, it looked like it was like had to have been, it was so precise that it basically had to be machine made.
mhm. Yes, I have a good idea about what you're saying. I was following their work, and I personally met Ben. We toured together like 5, 6 years ago. And yes, this is what I'm trying to say. It is not just a story of one engineer. It's a story of hundreds of them. Okay.
Mhm.
I'll tell you a funny story. One day I was flying to Luxor, I think Luxor, and next to me was a civil engineer, a modern Egyptian engineer. He was like 30 years old or something. I know that he's an engineer because he was talking on the phone before the airplane started to fly, and he was from the uh, the story because he was asking for some things. I knew that he is going to supervise a building in Luxor.
Mm.
So I took the chance and started to talk to him. And I told him um, how you deal with heavy stuff like some kind of packages, maybe, or cement piles or something like this.
Yeah.
He told me by cranes. So I told him, okay, do we have, and I asked him this question straight, do we have a crane can carry 500 ton? He looked at me and laughed. And he said, I don't understand this question. So I told him, because in ancient Egypt, we have so many blocks as one piece with this weight, even bigger. So he told me, even bigger. I can tell you that 200 ton is considered as a huge task on the workers. So 500 ton is not in their options. Okay. They are not expecting to deal with this number. So this is the case. So only not only big things, but as you said, this vase could be a small vase, like sometimes hand size or bigger than a hand size.
Hmm.
And yes, the analysis, and I'm talking this in my book, you will find that uh, they attribute these vases to pre-dynastic era, Nakada, especially what we call it Nakada culture. Inside one of the tombs, we found two things or two groups of things. We found pottery jars and we found hard stone jars. If you see the design, and I made sure to explain this in my book, what is the technique they used to make pottery jars and how they developed pottery jars. Because you cannot come from this point that people were hardly evolving in pottery jars. And then you find side by side to this pottery jar, a fancy hard stone jar. The pottery jar is very primitive. The proportions are a big mess.
Hmm.
The quality, but I don't say that this is bad. This is their knowledge. This is they were getting ready or they were getting developed in doing this. Okay, so no chance to blame or to say that this is not good art. No, it is good art, but no way to compare between this simple technique and the technique was used to create these fancy jars. Okay. And as I told you, it is not fancy because of the hardness. No, it is because of the hardness, because of the precision, because of the shiny surface.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because of the challenge to get these pieces from the quarry, the challenge of the size. Some of them had golden capstone, golden hands, the handles.
Hmm.
Okay. And the surprise that some are not Egyptian origin. some of the stones, like amethyst, like lapis lazuli.
Right.
These are not from Egypt. These stones from Afghanistan. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I remember I was an art historian, but lapis lazuli is only found in Afghanistan, and that's what they would use like in the Renaissance. They would even use that for like the royal blue on like if they were depicting like a royal king or something or Jesus or something, like they would always
Right.
use like the royal blue, but it was such an expensive mineral to get that you could only very rarely use it on certain paintings on a very prominent figure, and it was just like this weird thing. And they yeah,
You know what? It was a great surprise for me to know that lapis lazuli is not Egyptian. And it took me a while to digest this information because the amount of lapis lazuli was used in ancient Egypt is telling us very easy that lapis lazuli is Egyptian, but it's not. Almost everything, almost every jewelry piece in ancient Egypt contains lapis lazuli. But to know that it's not Egyptian, that was so weird. Like, how come? And
what
Afghanistan is not close country to Egypt. There are thousands of miles between Egypt and Afghanistan.
this is my piece of lapis lazuli that I got.
Oh,
I have a big old piece that I got from a
this is very nice piece.
I know I was at one point I was gonna cut it up and make it into jewelry, and then now it weighs 30 pounds or something. I was like, no, I can't
Yes,
cut it up. I
don't
love
do
it too
this.
much. Um, but I mean, like when you look at it, there's like little pieces of pyrite and this other stuff. Anyway, this is really hard. So
Yes,
when I think it's like really interesting when people talk about like we don't even give enough credit to the precision of beads. Like if you think about beads, how did they even like the uniformity of getting the hole that the string would have gone through is that's no easy task to get like a little fine thing and uniform it to where a necklace can fit to where, and you see those little tiny lapis lazuli beads that they have that are super skinny and fine, and they even have that in some of the in the
right.
museum and ancient stuff. I was going like, "Ah, I feel like they had to have had even smaller precision tools than we know, because I mean it's hard to do that today."
This is very correct because let's say when we talk about using big tool to create pressure, okay? But now we are talking about very small beads, so they cannot use big tool. They cannot
Yeah.
use this size of hammer. They need a kind of a tool like a small needle. The small needle will not cause this pressure. Otherwise, it is like what I call it nanotechnology. So there was high technology and high nanotechnology.
Mhm.
So these beads, and by the way, they are thousands, not just one bracelet or two or 10. There are thousands of them. And there are some of these bracelets and necklaces, they have beads smaller than the button, the regular size button. Some of them like a little bit bigger than the sesame seed.
Right.
So yes, as you said, how come they made the bead itself? That is number one. Number two, how they made the hole to go through the bead so they can put the string.
Well, yeah, your book is super fascinating, and I think if uh everybody should check it out for multiple reasons, because I mean you go into, I even like another observation that you made was about um the arrowheads, like when you went to, like to people before like the like before the pre-dynastics, like the most ancient
People of
people that they could find. And you were saying that the arrowheads are actually quite similar to like the North American arrowheads, and except that there's actually never been a bow and arrow found, an actual bow, just like these arrows. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because I was recently speculating with somebody on just like how elaborate some of the arrowheads and stuff are. And I think that the arrowheads are, some of them are so elaborate in different ways and stuff, and that you kind of wonder if they weren't using that as currency, or if there was another function besides just an actual arrow, because
Mhm.
they're so prominent and they're not even okay, if their purpose was to just injure a person or kill an animal or whatever, you don't need to have it so like sometimes they have interesting designs. You don't need to have it so precise. You don't need to like spend that much time on the thing. You just need like a couple of sharp points and then like it does its function. This
Right.
is like almost like they were showing off their artistry or something in some kind of way of trade. I don't know. It's weird. I think there's some basically, long story short, I think within arrowheads, there's something we're missing, all of us.
This is a very good point. Yes. Uh, I'm talking about the long time of mankind history. So we are not, our ancestors didn't start 80,000 or 100,000 BC, and then they started to develop slowly. No, that is not fair. Okay. According to the stone flint, the flint tool I saw in many museums, especially a new museum was opened in Egypt called the Museum of the Egyptian Civilizations. This museum contains a very good example of these flint tools. And what dragged my attention a long time ago, the shape of the knife also. These flint knives, it looks like our modern knives, that kind of wavy shape with the
Mm.
handle. Okay. So I asked myself a question. Who was copying who? Did we copy the ancient style or the ancient style copied earlier style? So I reached this information that yes, they were copying earlier style. So my story that there were many advanced civilizations and they disappeared one after the other. And it was like cycles of civilizations, okay, up
Mhm.
and down. So, because if you check the schedule or the dates I mentioned to these stones, there are big gaps in between. There are some stones, let's say 1000 BC, 100,000 BC, and then 100,050. So where is 100,020? No, we didn't find any. 100,030, we didn't find any. So it's 100,000 and 100,050. And then 200,050. What happened to 100,080? And then 500,000. So there are big gaps. So I think in these gaps, there were high civilization. So they didn't need to do any flint tools or stone tools.
Right?
So what happened when they lost civilization, when they lost technology, they didn't lose their information. So there was always some group of people who had good knowledge, but they didn't have any metal tools or computers or these kind of machines. So they wanted to develop some designs from flint, either as functioning tools or a toy or some kind of spending good time doing some kind of
Right.
artistic things. So that is what I think happened. Okay. And that's why we have so many small pieces look like elephants, giraffes, hippos. So they were spending good time making these designs.
Yeah. I think they were too. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about with you though is the Serapeum. Like you, the one of in Saqqara, and I didn't even know that there were three different ones. So you have to specify that you're talking about the Serapeum in Saqqara. So, yeah, what, like, I just thought you made so many amazing observations just about what the purpose of them were and about how like that like well no like when they said didn't they say that there was some cow or something found in one of them
Mhm.
but
Okay.
yeah
I'm happy that you read the book in a good way. Yes. To mention this information that it is not one Serapeum in Egypt, this is important because when we talk about the function, it will help us, this information will help us to know that they were using this technology all over Egypt. And by the way, I still believe that there are so many of them, but we don't know many of them. And
Hmm.
maybe some are found, but we give them different names. Okay, we don't call it Serapeum anymore. So the the Serapeum in Saqqara, we found 23 boxes. All of them were open. We didn't find anything inside. Zero. Only dust. Maybe some of them didn't have even dust. There was one box was found closed. And August Mariette, around 1860, 1862, he was trying desperately to open the box with manual techniques. He couldn't. So he had to use gunpowder. And when they went inside, they claim because his diaries are lost. So someone had told us that he had a chance to read the diaries of August Mariette, and he said that August Mariette wrote that they found a mummy of a bull, and that mummy is at the Agriculture Museum in Giza, west of Cairo, and so many jewelry. So I can tell you clearly, and no one can debate with this, there is no museum claims that they have the jewelry of the Serapeum. We don't have this title. We don't know that there is any existence of jewelry found at the Serapeum. What
Mm.
about the mummy? I visited the place with my family and we didn't find any mummy. We found 3 skeletons for bulls. And some books, very old books, talk about this, and they uh, tell us that these skeletons were found, yes, inside the Serapeum, but not inside the boxes. They were buried in some corners because the place was reused during the dynasties as a burial for the sacred bull, which is no problem because any site can be reused 1 time, 2 times, 10 times. Okay.
Hmm.
But we are talking about the original function. So
Yeah.
this closed box was found empty. And that was a big lie because if it was empty and closed, so what does it mean? So it means that the function was happening while it was empty. So it was not designed to contain bodies or mummies. No, it was functioning as it according to this function of condition. It was empty and functioning, and it is from what? From rose granite. So again, we talk about quartz.
Yeah, I mean that the Seraphim was such a crazy mystery. It's a really weird mystery, and there could be other ones at buried because it seems almost like I mean it's pretty far underground, so it seems kind of like a fluke that you have access to it. There it seems like that same kind of infrastructure could exist, but we just haven't dug it up yet.
Exactly, because this Serapeum itself, we found a new branch near 2008, 2010. So that Serapeum itself, which we know for a long time, we recently found a new branch, and they are digging now in the meantime to find the third branch of it. So yes, I think there are hundreds of Serapeums under the Egyptian desert.
Yeah, well, I mean, and similarly, I think the Osiris, so it's so the one by the temple of is it Dash no
The
Dagara?
Zion Temple, you mean? Or
Uh
Shaft?
not the Osiris shaft, the Osirian, the
Zion
Osirian
Temple. This is in Abydos,
in
behind Abydos
Abydos.
Temple.
Yeah.
Mhm.
For me, I'm kind of going, that was kind of a weird way they found that to begin with. There could be other things like at that level that we don't even haven't uncovered yet either.
Exactly. And that I will share with you an exclusive news.
Ooh.
They are about to discover a similar building in Dandara, near Dandara Temple, Patur, Osirian Temple also.
Okay, interesting. So it's also underneath the ground.
Yes.
That by it.
Mhm.
Huh. That's cool. That'll be a good
Mhm.
excavation with
And
that
knew
and somehow.
about this last week.
Very cool.
Mhm.
Do if there are any digs, do you ever get to go say hi?
Look, and it is not my part to share in diggings, but I shared some cases to explain the writings.
Mm.
That what I do better. I was in Tel Basta Museum, Northeast Egypt, and they were cleaning and doing some kind of restoration work to a big piece. And I was walking out with my group, and I heard them talking about how to identify some symbols to make sure they clean it in a good way. But the stone was in bad condition. So I told them, can I help you? So they said, okay. So I was showing them the outlines of so many samples. So they told me, how do you know this? I told them, I'm used to this. Like when I look to the wall, I can understand where is the head, where is the tail, where are the legs. Okay. Because it became something in my blood. So I spent like 30 minutes with them and I showed them what is the beginning of the text, where is the beginning, where is the end, so they can pay attention more to these corners. Okay, so this is what I do. I can get involved into the story, but after they found something. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Not the initial find.
Yes.
Well, Mr. Mohammed, tell us about I'm actually gonna come with you and Derek Olson to Egypt again this May. So tell us a little bit about like if people want to join, like what they can expect to happen.
The tour we offer, I was checking some other tours for other people, other travel agencies, and they offer, I can tell you, to be honest with you, all of us can offer the same hotels. All of us can offer the same, maybe food, the same transportation.
Mhm.
But what we are uh, doing differently, many things. The most important thing we offer is the type of teaching, the style of teaching. We talk about ancient Egypt in a different way, and we give credible story to our participant. Okay. People will not only listen to stories, but as you mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, that now you know about Newt and about other stuff. So people will truly learn about ancient Egypt, not just listening to some stories and maybe after a while they will forget. Some of them, they forget the stories before even leaving the country, leaving Egypt. But in our tours, no, they will learn and understand so many things about ancient Egypt, and maybe they will later have their own opinions. Okay. The second thing we offer as Saba tours. So the first thing is the guide, me, guide of Egypt. Okay. But the second thing is Sabatours is very caring company. The team, my team, and my wife Noha is the leader of the team now. She's the CEO of Sabatours. They pay great attention to all the details. And I didn't see this happening with any other tours with other companies. No, in Sabatours, in order to facilitate our trips in a good way, last year, we put a plan to buy vehicles, and we did this year, or we did it in 2023. So transportation is going to be made by our own cars. Okay. What is the difference if our own cars and rented cars? Our own cars means that there are so many supplies in the car, snacks, water. The driver is our own driver, so his loyalty and his attitude is going to be completely different. Our airport meet and assist service is beyond imagination. When I started to travel outside Egypt and fly long flights, I understand what does it mean to come after a long flight and meet someone who will take care of your things, take care of your visa, take you to the customs, to the
Yeah, it was amazing because I've
boarding.
traveled all over the world and I didn't have that, and it was like amazing. Even
And
like when I had to go get more cash from an ATM, like you had somebody escort me over to the ATM. So,
yes,
yeah, it was
yes,
super secure.
many people, they are half sleepy. Some people arrive 4 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock. Okay, so truly I appreciate this service. Okay. So our team on the field, okay, you will find that all what you do is just walking to the site, following the tour guide, listening, because the team will take care of all the logistics. And the final thing, also this thing, I just said that they can take you, other tours can take you to good restaurant, but we make sure to take you to the good restaurants. The difference is if there is no available good restaurant, we do lunch either at home or somehow we try to provide the best food always. Because I know good food, it means a good tour. Bad food will lead to bad tour.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is our concept, is to do our best to make this tour happen. I think if you join any other tour, they may say the same, but this is truly our belief. Okay, all of us are we join this business because we love this business. We love doing this. Okay, so this is my message to the people who want to participate this tour. In general, come to Egypt either with us or with someone else. But to come with us, it will be your best uh, uh, decision,
Yeah.
because with us you will uh, have no headache, you will have no problem, you will have nothing to worry about. We will take care of you.
And you do. I 100% can attest to that. So that's great. All right, Mohamed, this was awesome. So is there anything else you want to add about your book?
Yes, I advise people who didn't have my book, of course, to buy the book because it will give them good idea about ancient Egypt, either regular ancient Egypt or what I call it pre-Diluvian Egypt. And I advise the people who had my book and read it to read it again. You will find more details. I wrote this book the same way like the ancient history, multi-layers. So the more you read the book, the more information you find. And the more connections you will make between things and other things in ancient Egypt.
Well, and now it's very much like I read it over a course of a week, and then now I mean it's such a good like reference book too. Like I'll be like, okay, wait, what? Like, and if I go back to wait, who are Newt's children again? And I go back and I'll be like, oh wait, who? Like, okay, let me. I mean, like it's just such a good thing now that I've had this information in my head. I'm like, oh wait, I think Mohamed mentioned that in his book somewhere. So it's an amazing book to keep on going back to for reference. So I think it's a great book. You did a good job. Good.
Thank you. Appreciate.
I remember like 5 years ago or whatever, when I went through, I was like, you should write a book. And you're like,
Yes.
so that's great. I'm glad you actually did it. So that's really cool.
I'm writing my second book now,
Good.
and it is about very interesting subject, stargates of ancient Egypt.
And you were really pivotal in pointing those out to me and making me go like, wait a
Yes.
minute, that is really interesting. They do say technically say Stargate. What does this mean exactly? So a whole other level of stuff going on with that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And as you said, I came from a different background. Okay, so we don't talk about stargates in that
Yeah,
as the background.
exactly. That's a little controversial if you're just doing standard Egyptology.
Yes,
So, yeah.
but it's real. So I'm hoping to finish this book this year.
Yeah.
Mm.
I'm excited about that one too. All right, Mohamed, this has been super great. I've loved having you on. So we'll have to have you again on with your next new book. So thank you for coming on.
Okay. Thanks, Nikki. Bye bye.